Hello and welcome to our webinar. I'm Mike Bias with the Alzheimer's Association, and our topic today is Advancing the Science, Alzheimer's and Dementia Research. We're going to look at the current state of research and where we are on our mission to find a cure and realize our vision of a world without Alzheimer's. Now, before I introduce our guest today, I just want to give you a couple of pointers so that you can get the most out of today's webinar. Directly below my webcam, you'll see the program notes pod. And there, if you're watching us live, you can click to download the slides and notes from the presentation. If you're watching this via a recording, you can download the notes at alzwebinars.org. Also, down at the lower left-hand corner of your screen, you'll see what's called the Q&A pod. And that's where you can ask questions of our speaker anonymously. No one will see your name except us. So, speaking of our speaker, I'd like to introduce her. Her name is Hadi Finnerty. She's the Senior Manager of Education and Community Volunteers and the Research Champion for the Alzheimer's Association Illinois chapter. Now, in addition to being a professional Alzheimer's educator, Hadi has personal experience with Alzheimer's, having been a part-time caregiver for her grandmother who had Alzheimer's. Welcome, Hadi. How are you?
Hi, Mike. I'm doing great. How are you?
Great. I'm going to just go ahead and turn off my camera, and I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. So, welcome everyone to Advancing the Science, Alzheimer's and Dementia Research. As Mike mentioned, I'm the Senior Manager of Education and Community Volunteers, so I am not a doctor or a researcher, but this presentation is just a basic level of what we know with science and Alzheimer's going into the research and exciting new stuff that's happening and that's coming to the horizon. So, let's get started. Our work is about people and science. Many times I get asked, well, what does this symbol really symbolize? And as you can see, we have the beaker and the people. So it's the science and the people together. The multifaceted approach to end Alzheimer's is a great strength of our organization. So, what makes us unique and makes us the leader of the cause? Everything we do with care and support, advocacy, research is rooted to the most up to date research in the field. And the global scientific community knows we have a relentless focus on helping people and their families every single day. So, the Alzheimer's Association is a global organization working to advance care, support, and research across the world. Our time today, we're going to talk about the landscape of Alzheimer's and dementia science. We're going to talk about the latest advances in clinical trials, treatments, and lifestyle interventions. We're going to start off about talking about dementia is a syndrome. So to begin, let's level set. What is the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? Dementia is a collection of symptoms that are related to cognitive decline. Alzheimer's is a disease or the biological cause of dementia. Dementia means that a person's cognition has declined to the point that it starts to interfere with their daily activities and their daily living. So, their daily activities could be dressing oneself, feeding oneself, taking medication. So, now maybe they're missing their medications and they're, missing medications days at a time. Handling finances. So, maybe family members are noticing that they're months behind on their bills, and families now are stepping in to start paying the bills again. We normally think of cognition as memory, but it also will start to include our thinking, our judgment, our planning. So, those of us that love a to do list, they're not checking the items off that to do list anymore. Orientation to time and place. Dementia can also include behavioral and psychological symptoms. So, agitation, sometimes we'll see aggression, sleep disturbances, depression, anxiety. There are many causes of dementia, but Alzheimer's is the most common form. So, as we start to see here, Alzheimer's is 60 to 80% of cases. Most people who have dementia have it because they have Alzheimer's disease in their brain. The first things that start to become affected is our hippocampus area. That's what we call our memory bank, and that is the formation of new memories. Other causes of dementia are vascular problems, and you'll see on the slide we have vascular, which is 10 to 40% of cases. Anything that interferes with the body's ability to get blood, oxygen, and other nutrients to the brain will compromise its functioning. So we always know that 25% of oxygen flow to the brain is what we need to have a healthy brain function. And when we start to have vascular problems, that 25%, whether it's caused by a stroke or something else, starts to get compromised. Then we have Lewy body dementia or Lewy bodies, 10 to 25%. So we'll see here dementia with Lewy bodies or Parkinson's disease dementia. And then less than 10% is frontal temporal dementia. So here this is associated with mood rather than memory, and it's very rare. What we like to call these four the big four. The Alzheimer's Association provides care and support for and research into all causes of dementia, not just Alzheimer's disease. So if you or a loved one is dealing with another form, we are here to help you as well. Now we're going to get into the risk factors. If you remember one thing from today, it is that Alzheimer's is not typical aging. Years and years ago, they would say, oh, that person is going senile. They have hardening of the arteries, and they would think that that is normal aging. That is actually not normal aging. It was signs of Alzheimer's or dementia. Yes, age is the primary risk factor, but it's also the primary risk factor for many types of cancers, and no one thinks of cancer as a part of normal aging. After the age of 65, your chances start to increase every 5 years. And if you can see on the graph, 85 plus years is a 36%, so 2.1 million. So we're starting to see after the age of 85, your chances increase by 80%. Many times, if you have the APOE4 gene, that's linked to the greater risk of developing Alzheimer's after the age of 65. And family history plays a role as well. Almost everyone experiences something called normal age-related cognitive decline. I'm sure most of us, maybe we haven't seen someone in a couple months and they're talking to us and we're thinking, how do we know them? And then we get in the car to drive away and we're thinking, oh, I remember, that's Betty. It takes us a minute. Or, occasionally we'll enter a room and we'll think, why did I enter the room? And then we remember, oh, I needed to get my reading glasses. We have the ability to retrace our steps. So that's normal age related. I always give the example of myself. I'm trying to get my son in the car and all of my stuff for work, and I'm driving halfway down the block and I'm thinking, did I shut the garage door? And I'll turn back around just to make sure. Those are some normal age related changes. However, all of these are normal and do not indicate that a person is either having Alzheimer's or another dementia. Now, there are some risk factors that we cannot control, and those are our age, our genes, and our family history. But some risk factors can be controlled, and these are called modifiable risk factors. So, cardiovascular disease, social and cognitive stimulation. We know it's very important to do mentally stimulating activities. We know it's important that people do not do well in isolation, so it's good to be social. And traumatic brain injury. So we will talk more about the research regarding some of these risk factors later on in the presentation. Next is the impact of Alzheimer's. There are 5.8 million Americans that are living with Alzheimer's today, and the number is projected to increase to 14 million by 2050. More than 16 million Americans providing unpaid care for people with Alzheimer's or dementia. Alzheimer's is the sixth leading cause of death right now with no treatment yet available to slow, stop, or prevent the disease. And it is estimated that Alzheimer's and other dementias will cost the nation $290 billion, and this will escalate to over $1 trillion if we do not have breakthroughs. So the impact of Alzheimer's is staggering. We'll start to see in different ways of how coming together is helping, and one of the things is we advocate. So, what is the Alzheimer's Association doing about it? When it comes to research, we are attacking Alzheimer's from many fronts. So, to know more about just detection, prevention, early diagnosis, and treatment. So, we are working intensely to create unprecedented momentum, raising the public discussion of Alzheimer's and dementia to the top of mind in the United States. And we have increased federal funding for Alzheimer's and dementia research at the National Institute of Health. And you'll see here the funding from 2011 to 2019. It has jumped to $2.3 billion. These dollars are crucial to moving research forward, and the increased investment allows for new and innovative new ideas for research and also helps to grow a legion of new researchers dedicated to the fight against Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. So, the Alzheimer's Association has been instrumental in advocating for these increases in federal funding of research, which allows for more researchers to get funded and accelerate science. We are also the connectors, conveners, funders, and catalysts. In fact, we are the global leader in Alzheimer's research. So, at the Alzheimer's Association International Conference, it is the largest meeting in the world that's dedicated to Alzheimer's and related dementia research. About 6,000 scientists from over 70 different countries joined us in Los Angeles this year. We also know that researchers get their information from journals and meetings. That's why the Alzheimer's Association International Conference and the Alzheimer's Association three leading science journals are critical in advancing knowledge in the science community. So this is just a sampling and visual representation of some of the research programs that we do. But know that Alzheimer's is a global problem, and the Alzheimer's Association is working relentlessly to move research across the globe by connecting scientists, convening to share learnings, funding research, and catalyzing or kickstarting scientific programs. So, to know more about what we do in regards to our robust research program, visit our website at alz.org/research, and you can see more about these different areas that we are focusing on. Alzheimer's Association Global Research Investment. While we've been successful in scaling up the National Institute of Health dollars for Alzheimer's, there are some drawbacks to that. So, for one thing, the National Institute of Health really only funds research in the United States, but private philanthropy can fund anywhere in the world, and the best projects, regardless of where they are happening. So, today, the Alzheimer's Association has more than $167 million of grants in force, making possible more than 500 research projects in 27 different countries. And the countries are highlighted in purple where we have active grants. So they used to say that the sun never sets on the British Empire. Well, today the sun never sets on Alzheimer's Association funded researchers. Literally every minute of every day somewhere in the world is someone trying to work to defeat this terrible disease. And the funds raised by the Alzheimer's Association and by you is really making that possible. Right now, it's a very exciting time in research. Sometimes it feels like the news is full of negative stories, particularly about clinical trials. However, there's more excitement and more enthusiasm now than at any time in history in the Alzheimer's research community. In the future, we're looking more toward a progress toward more effective treatment. So we're thinking that a treatment for Alzheimer's and other dementias may look a lot like a treatment for heart disease. So it is likely to have a mix of medications and lifestyle changes, both for prevention and for treatment. In this next slide, you'll see we leave no stone unturned. Researchers are looking at every possible avenue that makes sense, and Alzheimer's is funding studies in these areas that are listed above. Now, don't worry, there's not going to be a quiz on this later, but these are just some areas that we're looking into as a sampling of the diverse approaches that researchers are taking to create better mechanisms. And through the Alzheimer's Association initiative called Part the Cloud, This is committed to funding novel research ideas to determine if they will be effective treatments for millions of people affected by Alzheimer's disease. So, just looking at the many different ways of tackling this disease. Now we're talking about medicines focused on behavioral and psychological symptoms of dementia. While finding the underlying cause of Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, there are clinical trials underway looking at therapies that are important to improve the quality of life for people living with the disease. Now we're looking into ongoing clinical trials focusing on therapies for agitation, sleep disturbances, psychosis, and apathy. We tend to think of cognition and dementia because it's part of the definition, but some of the non cognitive symptoms can actually both be the most disturbing and disruptive. So, some researchers continue to develop medication for these symptoms as well. And we heard at the Alzheimer's Association International Conference this year that the use of some sleep medications may be associated with a higher risk of dementia in some populations. That's going to be an ongoing thing that we're going to be looking into. And next, the latest news about the Sprint Mind study. Many of you may have seen this particular clinical trial in the news. It made international national headlines because the results of the study show significant promise for the dementia field. The study tested whether intensively treating systolic blood pressure, so controlling it to 120 systolic, would decrease risk for developing cognitive impairment and dementia. What's important about this study is that the study investigators were allowed to use blood pressure medications or could advocate for changes in the diet or exercise to control blood pressure. They found that controlling the blood pressure to 120 systolic decreased risk for developing mild cognitive impairment and dementia. Researchers reported a statistically significant 19% lower rate of new cases of mild cognitive impairment among participants receiving intensive treatment and a 17% reduction in a combined outcome of mild cognitive impairment or probable dementia. So, why is this important? So, the Sprint Mind study is extremely important because it showed through a rigorous trial that what's good for the heart, we also know is good for the brain. So, what this study tells us is that there are things that you can do today to reduce your risk for developing mild cognitive impairment and dementia, especially related to our cardiovascular health. So, what you can do, reduce your sodium intake, so such as deli meat, pizza, or chips. Eat more potassium rich foods like your leafy greens and your bananas. Go dark. Eating a small square of dark chocolate can reduce blood pressure. Incorporate omega-3 fatty acids, so fish like salmon, and drink less alcohol. This is an extremely important thing because we know that what we can do today will really help us with the benefits long term. Also exciting new stuff is the U.S. study to protect brain health through lifestyle intervention to reduce risk. So the Alzheimer's Association is conducting a landmark multi-domain lifestyle intervention clinical trial that incorporates management of our cardiovascular health, nutrition, exercise, and social and cognitive stimulation. The intervention will take place over 2 years in 2,000 participants across 5 clinical U.S. sites, and there will be 2 lifestyle interventions compared. So we'll have a self-guided and a structured lifestyle group. And the study will recruit individuals between the ages of 60 to 79, and they must have a primary relative, so a father, a mother, siblings with a history of cognitive decline or dementia, and they must have room for improvement in their terms of their lifestyle behavior. So these people will live a very sedentary or unhealthy diet. So in order to understand whether the study results will be generalized to our diverse population, the trial is committed to geographical, racial, and ethnic diversity and will be selecting clinical trial sites with the capacity and evidence-based record or plan for diversity and inclusion in a lifestyle clinical setting. Also, that what was new was the University of California, Berkeley announced a 5-year grant expected to total $47 million from the National Institute of Aging to incorporate brain imaging into the U.S. pointer. What we want to do is change the trajectory of Alzheimer's disease. We believe that if we can develop a treatment by 2025, this could be through medicines or a lifestyle intervention that will delay the onset of Alzheimer's by just 5 years. Then it is projected that the 5.7 million people expected to develop Alzheimer's by 2050 would not. This would have a huge impact on our families and our society if we could really change that trajectory by just being able to slow down or change it of the impact of Alzheimer's or dementia. So in summary, there is hope in research, and the Alzheimer's Association is the leading global research community. It is a very exciting time in research today. There are new tools and technologies being developed every day to detect, diagnose the disease, and better understand their brain. So we hope you leave here today knowing more about the Alzheimer's Association, especially related to our research mission. Please know that we are the global leader, like I mentioned, for Alzheimer's and dementia science. And there are new tools and technologies that are being developed every day to detect, diagnose the disease, and to better understand our brain health. So we truly believe the new research is going to be the leading cause to the future of therapy with combined drugs and modifiable risk factors. And above all, remember that there is still hope. So if you like more information, you can visit alz.org or alz.org/research for more info specifically on research. You can also dial our toll-free number, which is our 24-hour, 7 days a week helpline, and that number is 800-272-3900. And they are available literally any hour of any day to help you with any kind of needs that you need, whether it's information and referral or whether it's in the moment needs. And I just want to leave you with our vision.
All right,
our
well,
vision
great.
is
Thank
a
you very
world
much, Hadi.
without Alzheimer's disease.
With respect to
So at
questions,
this
one of the
time, I'd
top
be happy
questions
to
that we
take any
always get
questions about
is
anything we've
about
talked about
turmeric
today
or
anything
coconut
else you'd
oil.
like to
People
ask
say,
about.
I've heard that these will stop Alzheimer's or prevent Alzheimer's. Is that the case? And should we just try it anyway? Because, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Well, there is no prevention or cure for Alzheimer's, and I don't recommend everyone rushing out to take turmeric or coconut oil because some of those can affect a lot of our medications. So it's
Oh,
always
so
best
we
to
don't
talk
have
to
any
your
possible
doctor
interactions
before
with other
you,
medications.
just go to the
Great.
drugstore and
Okay. And
decide to start taking turmeric.
the
So I
position
would
of the
always suggest
Alzheimer's
before you
Association
do
is,
anything,
unless it's
talk to
been
your doctor
proven with
first.
clinical studies that are duplicable by other researchers, then
Right.
it's basically it could just be junk science. So for that reason, the Alzheimer's Association waits until it's proven before we jump aboard. This week, Hadi, Biogen, a pharmaceutical company, announced that they were going to be seeking to make aducanumab, an Alzheimer's drug, available to the public. They are claiming that in their phase 3 studies, their clinical trials rather, that it's been proven effective. Is this something that will cure or stop Alzheimer's?
So I don't want to say a cure or stop, but like you mentioned, Biogen is going to try to pursue regulatory FDA approval for the drug that Mike you just mentioned. I can't pronounce, so I'll let you do that. But yes, like you mentioned, through the results of their clinical trials and from the emerge and engage studies and
Oh,
other related data, after finding a reduction of cognitive and functional
so
decline in
the high,
people taking the high dose of this aducanumab drug. But I don't want to say a cure, but they are finding a decline in
you mean
people
early
taking a
stages?
higher dose of this drug that only have mild cognitive impairment or
Yes,
early
just to
onset
differentiate
of
that, the Alzheimer's
Alzheimer's disease.
Association now refers to people who are
Early stages,
diagnosed
sorry, yes.
before age 60
We
with
keep talking back and
Alzheimer's
forth. Now I
disease
got guess. Early
as
stages of
young
Alzheimer's
onset.
disease.
The onset is when the disease began or was diagnosed. Early onset is young onset. Early stages, rather, regardless of how old you are when you get the disease, that just refers to the fact that you are in the beginning stages of the disease. It's not advanced a great deal yet. And so this drug has been, as Hadi mentioned, has been shown to slow the decline in the early stages. That doesn't mean it stops the decline. It doesn't stop the disease, and it doesn't reverse the decline. It helps slow down the decline in cognitive function, which is great news. We would rather have it stop and reverse the decline, but that's still on the horizon. So that's a great thing. And why does it take so long for drugs to be approved? A lot of people will ask, and that's because of safety.
Right.
They start just to do a trial to see if it's safe. Then they do a trial with a limited number of people and a control group to see, well, is it helping? Then they go to phase 3 where they do a large number of people. Now that they know it's safe, and now they know that in a small group of people it showed some promise, they expand it to a large group, phase 3, and this takes years. And that's why it's a cumbersome process, but it's a safer process, and it's a process that's more reliable. So it takes a while for these drugs to come on board. So I like what you said, Hadi, about the fact that if we can delay the onset of Alzheimer's, I mean, it's really just a race against the clock. If I get diagnosed with Alzheimer's when I was 100 years old, it's certainly not the tragedy that it would be if I was diagnosed when I was 65. So delaying is a big thing. And what you're saying is we're seeing more and more evidence that if we take care of our blood pressure, our diabetes, exercise, and eat right, that those can help delay the onset. Well, that's certainly within our control. Great. That is about all the time we have for today. I thank you all for signing in.
Yep.
And Hadi, I thank you for your time.
Yep, that's correct.
I hope you'll go to alzwebinars.org to share this with friends and family members, and also go to alz.org to find out more
Thank you, Mike.
information
Thank you, everyone.
as new developments are happening all the time in the research field. Thank you and have a great day.